Graduation night, my 10-year-old nephew Mason slapped my cake off the table, plate shattered, frosting on my shoes, and everyone laughed. My mom, Diane, laughed the loudest. My sister, Harper, sipped wine like it was a show. I was still holding the knife when Mason looked up and said, "Eat it off the concrete, Aunt Reagan." Something in me went quiet, like someone pulled the plug on my heartbeat. Tell me, if that was you, do you scream, or do you walk away to save what's left of your dignity? I left. Hours later, a text from Diane. "We're done with you. Stay gone forever." That's the family I paid bills for. Outraged yet? Drop a comment. What would you do in my place? And if this hit a nerve, subscribe. This story only gets messier. I didn't just wake up one day and grow a backbone. It happened in slow motion, like the way frosting slides off a ruined cake, and you can't unsee it once it hits the floor. That night, after Mason slapped my graduation cake and everyone laughed, I drove home with my hands locked on the wheel so hard I could feel my pulse in my palms. Seattle rain stitched lines across the windshield. My apartment felt like a hospital room, quiet, cold, too bright. I set my keys down and didn't cry. That surprised me the most. No collapse, no sobbing on the kitchen floor, just silence, the kind that feels like a decision. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my mother, Diane. "We're done with you. Stay gone forever." A red heart popped up from my sister Harper like a little stamp that said, "Approved." Do you know that feeling when your heart doesn't break? It just hardens. I stared at the screen and thought, "You want me gone? Okay, let's see what that actually means." If you've ever been the responsible one, you know the drill. Fix everyone's disaster, clean up the mess, smile on command. Tonight, the drill ended. I opened my budget spreadsheet. 2 rows glared like headlights in a dark alley. Parents' mortgage, $1,400 a month, and Harper's SUV, $640 a month. Auto debits every month, 3 years. I remember the day I co-signed, Diane cupping my face with a soft voice that always meant I was about to pay for something. "You're the steady one, Aunt Reagan. You don't have kids or debt like your sister. Just help for a while." And Harper, tapping her acrylic nail on the paper, laughing, "You're basically a bank with nice hair." Shocking, right? I decided to replay that line in my head until it burned. I scrolled through the messages. "We'll cover next month, promise. Dad's between jobs again. Your sister's business just needs a runway." The runway never ended, and every thank you came with a little hook hidden inside. "Now we owe you a feeling we will never pay back." The worst part? I signed on because I thought love was a bill you owe in installments. Maybe you've done the same, thinking loyalty will eventually convert into respect. Spoiler, it usually doesn't. The apartment hummed with the fridge and the can't sleep kind of midnight shit. I poured water and watched the condensation crawl down the glass. And then I felt it, tiny, steady, undeniable, my boundaries knitting themselves back together. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. I opened a new text and typed one line. "Removing my name from every loan tomorrow. No emojis, no explanation, no apology paragraph." I hit send. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second like it wanted to take it back, but it didn't. If that moment hits you somewhere soft, tap like, drop a comment. Tell me the line you'd send if your courage finally answered. I went to the bathroom and stared in the mirror. My face looked bruised by the fluorescent light, but my eyes were steady. I whispered something I hadn't said out loud in years. "I'm allowed to stop." Strange how saying those 4 words feels like discovery. I'm allowed to stop. Stop apologizing for not being a wallet with the pulse. Stop pretending I'm not hurt. Stop begging to be asked about my life when I'm the one financing the show. The next morning, the buzz started. Unknown numbers from Boise. "Diane, Harper, what did you mean by that text? Do not touch those loans. This is family business." My palms went slick, but I didn't answer. Instead, I made coffee. The steam rose, and I thought, I belong to me. You can screenshot that, put it on a sticky note, say it into your toothbrush foam. I belong to me. When I told Diane at the beginning that I was applying to grad school, she said, "That's cute. Try not to make it your personality." On graduation night, I finally understood. My success threatened the story where I stay useful but small. So if you're angry on my behalf, good. Let it burn through the part of you that ever accepted crumbs. And if you're still listening, if this has you yelling at your screen, tell me in the comments, what bill of love are you done paying? Share this with a friend who needs a sign, because sometimes a sign isn't a miracle. Sometimes it's a single line in a text sent at 12:07 a.m. that tears the leash in half. And with that line sent, I did the one thing that terrified them, a thing polite daughters aren't supposed to do. I took the power to a bank. Green First Bank smelled like printer ink and lemon cleaner, the scent of rules that actually mean something. Mr. Diaz, a man with calm eyes and wire-rimmed glasses, led me into a small office with a fern trying to survive under fluorescent lights. "Reagan, you sent over your documents. I reviewed them," he said, folding his hands like he'd seen this movie before. I told him everything. 2 loans I co-signed, no ownership stake, years of payments I made because family. He nodded. "You're not the first person to be taken advantage of under that word. If you've ever sat in a chair like that, you know how it feels. Equal parts exposed and finally validated." He slid a packet across the table. "If you can prove you don't hold ownership or financial interest in the property or vehicle, we can request a liability release and freeze joint credit access." I handed him my folder like it was armor, lease agreement in Seattle, pay stubs, emails from Diane saying, "The house is ours, you just helped sign," text messages from Harper, "You're a lifesaver, you'll cover until I get my commission, right?" Mr. Diaz read a few lines and said the words that still echo, "Everything we need is here." He dialed legal. "Let's start the co-borrower removal for Reagan, effective immediately, pending standard checks." The click of his pen sounded like a gavel. I signed my name until my hand cramped. Each signature felt like cutting a thread I'd been pretending wasn't choking me. Cue the meltdown. By the time I got home, my phone was a siren. "You're destroying this family. You will regret this. This is elder abuse." Elder abuse because I stopped paying their mortgage. "Are you furious yet? If yes, hit like so the algorithm knows you're awake." Then came the pounding. My apartment door rattled in the frame. The video intercom lit up. Diane and Harper, faces tight with fury and panic. "Open this door!" Diane shouted. "What did you do at the bank?" Harper's mascara had traveled south. She was crying in that way people do when they're not sorry for the right thing. "They froze our accounts. My car, Reagan. They're threatening to repossess my car." I turned on a voice recorder. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. I called the non-emergency line and said, "2 people are outside my apartment, yelling, refusing to leave." The dispatcher asked if I knew them. "They're family," I said, "but today they're trespassers." Harper hit the door with her palm. "You're killing Mom. She can't handle this stress." Diane's voice came thin and sharp through the wood. "You think a degree makes you better than your blood? You're nothing without us." Shock dialogue right there, the kind that makes strangers in the comments say, "I need names." Minutes stretched. Sirens painted the street red and blue. 2 officers arrived, 1 man, 1 woman, professional, bored in that we've seen every drama way. Diane rushed them. "She's our daughter. She ruined our finances. We just want to talk." The male officer lifted a hand. "Ma'am, this is a private residence. If you've been asked to leave, that you need to leave." "I have rights as her mother," Diane said. "Not here, you don't," the female officer replied. "Not to trespass." Through the intercom, I said calmly, "If you act like intruders, I'll treat you like intruders." The officer glanced at the camera, a small tilt of respect. Diane turned her fury on the lens. "Blood doesn't disappear because you say so." I didn't answer. I didn't open the door. Eventually, they left under the wash of police lights, their anger trailing down the stairs like smoke. I slid to the floor and saved the audio file as boundaries. April 17th. If you're screaming good at your screen, comment boundaries so I know you made it this far. Then came round 2, the smear campaign. Diane posted on Facebook, big bold letters. "Sometimes the child you trust most betrays you the worst. She stole from us and destroyed our credit." The comments poured in. "Ungrateful. Poor Diane." Somebody added, Heard she used her parents' money for that Seattle apartment. That one would have gutted the old me. Instead, I emailed my team at work. If you see rumors about me, please ignore. I'm fine, and I appreciate your professionalism. No tears, no manifesto. I let the truth do what truth does when you stop babysitting lies. It stands up all by itself. Mr. Diaz emailed 2 days later, preliminary approval complete, next steps underway. On day 3, a letter arrived with a gold-embossed seal, confirmation that I was released from all liability related to both loans. I held it like a birth certificate, not of a person, of a boundary. Share this part with someone who needs proof that paperwork can be self-rescue, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sign your name to your own freedom and refuse to apologize for it. The noise tried to drown me, but quiet has a longer reach. When the smoke cleared, I didn't go back. I went forward. The Facebook post vanished like it had never existed. Maybe someone told Diane the bank would verify. Maybe she realized lawsuits are expensive. Maybe shame finally had picked up the phone. It didn't matter. The damage didn't define me because I had stopped auditioning for the role of good daughter who pays on cue. If you've ever found peace after noise, you know the quiet has texture. My mornings turned soft and steady. Coffee, a yoga mat, the city waking up like a giant gently turning over. I walked to work without checking my phone for landmines. At Green Pulse Tech, I buried myself in a project everyone said was doomed. Legacy system, messy data, unrealistic timeline. Perfect. I like puzzles that don't apologize for being difficult. I wrote specs, held boundaries, refused chaos disguised as urgency. Weeks later, in a meeting with 2 white lights and 2 loud air conditioning, our CEO, Lydia, said, "Reagan, you lead with steadiness. People trust that." I felt my throat get tight. Not with fear, with relief. No one had ever said steadiness like a strength before. Then, at home, my friends filled the empty spaces family was supposed to occupy. Elena dropped off flowers in a soup pot big enough to heal a village. Marcus pointed at my cactus and said, "It's me, calm but don't touch." We laughed the kind of laugh that doesn't hurt afterward. Then Mr. Diaz sent a photo that made my week. My release letter framed in the bank's compliance office with a little plaque. Example, consumer boundary protection. It sounds dramatic, but I cried. Not because it was about me, but because it was bigger than me. It was proof that family is not a hall pass to your wallet, your time, your sanity. If this gives you oxygen, share it. Somebody's algorithm needs to hear no spoken out loud. Harper texted months later, "You've ruined everything." Diane called from a new number and left a voicemail of tears and blame. I didn't bite. My therapist says every boundary has a price. Pay it once and you own the land. I kept paying, no contact, no explanations, no arguing with people who were auditioning for an audience I no longer was. The smears stopped finding me because I stopped living where they were thrown. That's the unglamorous truth. No one puts in movie endings. Peace is habits, not miracles. Here's the shock line I never told anyone. The day I signed my first cosigner form, Diane leaned in and whispered, "Don't make me regret ever having you." I wish I had looked up and said, "You won't regret having me, you'll regret using me." I didn't. I learned too late the way most of us do, but late is still on time when it saves your life. If that sentence hits you, hit like so I know it landed. One crisp evening, the sun laid gold across Lake Union, and my phone lit with a 6-word text from Harper. "I'm sorry for everything, no excuses." I stared at it for a long minute. I didn't feel triumph, I didn't feel vengeful, I felt steady. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reopening the door and resetting the alarm code. Sometimes it's setting the key down and walking away in peace. I didn't reply, not because I'm cruel, because I'm free. I keep the police incident number in my notes, the bank letter in a folder, the audio file labeled Boundaries in April 17th. Not as trophies, more like anchor points in a map out of a maze. When doubt creeps in, I press play and hear Diane yelling at a closed door and an officer saying, "Ma'am, you need to leave." That sentence has become a mantra. You need to leave. Leave my finances, leave my head, leave my narrative. If you're here, still listening, maybe because your own story is humming under your skin, here's your prompt. What would your one-line text be? The one that snaps the leash? Drop it in the comments. If this made you feel less alone, Share it with the person who always pays the bill in more ways than one. Subscribe if you want more stories that say the quiet part out loud. Not because I need the numbers, but because we're building a little city of steady people who refuse to be used. People ask, do you miss them? I miss the idea of them. I miss a version of family that might still be living somewhere else, in some other kitchen where a 10-year-old doesn't learn to humiliate his aunt for applause. But I don't miss the contract I never signed, the one that said I owed my life just for being born. I traded it for a different deal. I belong to me, and if you're wondering whether it's worth it, hear me. The first quiet morning is worth every siren the night before. So yeah, the smear fizzled, the truth landed, and I built a life that fits. One where my name on a page means my choice, my consent, my freedom. If that makes you angry for me, good. Let it also make you brave for you. Here's where I landed. Peace doesn't arrive with fireworks. It shows up like a steady breath after you've been holding it way too long. I didn't win a courtroom scene. I just stopped paying for a version of love that hurt. I closed a door, kept the receipts, and chose quiet over chaos. Some days I still hear their laughter and my chest tightens like I'm back on that patio. Then I look at my life, the work I'm proud of, the friends who show up, mornings that start soft, and I remember who I belong to. Be honest, am I in the wrong? For saying no, for protecting my credit, my time, my sanity? Maybe I'm not the daughter they wanted. I'm the adult I needed. The lesson I keep underlining. Boundaries aren't ultimatums, they're oxygen. You don't set them to punish, you set them to breathe. If you're standing at your own closed door, let this be your sign to lock it and keep the key. Tell me your one-line text in the comments. What would you send at 12:07 a.m.? Like, share this with the friend who needs courage. Good. And subscribe if you want more honest stories. We heal louder together.